The journey I've taken into Pink Floyd's music has been one of my favorites I've done thus far on this channel. Their albums tend to be conceptually rich. There's a wide, diverse range of music on each album, and also the subject matter is unbelievably deep. And so it makes for fantastic videos to make because there's such a slew of content to do a deep dive on, which I'll be doing for this album here, which is Meddle. I've covered most of their albums in this unbelievable run that they went on in the 70s with albums such as Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here. This one is said to be a bit of a transitional album from the Syd Barrett era into the Waters era. And so there's a lot of experimental tracks in there. It reflects this kind of transitional nature they were in. Lastly, as usual with these Pink Floyd albums, this is sponsored by Matthew K, who has been unbelievably generous and sponsored basically all of the album runs I've done on Pink Floyd. So big shout out to Matthew. Thanks once again. Other than that, I think we're ready to go. I've got a bunch of tea brewed and I want to get into this music. So let's get into it. Here we go. First track on the album. This one is called One of These Days. Now, I've been told a little bit about this album and that this is one of the very experimental tracks. Got Howling Wind. Bassline building. It's interesting, the wind fits in with the music oddly well. I was just about to say, it almost sounds like a swirling organ, and then the organ comes in. Or is it a synth? Who knows? One of the most brilliant things about Pink Floyd, and I've recognized about this era of music, especially guys who are really pushing it like Pink Floyd were, very few were like them, but still, is that they really take the time to do something conceptual and different and experiment. They were an unbelievably popular band eventually with albums like Dark Side of the Moon, yet they made long tracks, odd tracks, esoteric tracks. They don't mind having something in there that was just to build atmosphere. Like they're doing here, they're taking their time to build something strange. These strange feelings come from this kind of haunting wind in the background and just this bass line is... oddly alien feeling, you know? Yeah, very alienating sounds, you know? Oh, now it's picking up. So thick. Wow. It's really interesting to me how often this band deals with the idea of like isolation or feeling alienated. It's one of the real core subject matters that this band pokes and prods, and the way they do it in so many different ways. One of which is through the lyrics. Another way is the sounds and the soundscape that they create. This one sounds so strange, abstract, right? It has this feeling of being in space. Another thing that they deal with quite often. So ahead of their time, man. You can't really make out what is happening. What instruments are being played. Nick Mason. Two different guitars, right ear, left ear. That was a trippy track, man. Okay, very interesting. This is clearly a very experimental album because what they created there was very, very unique in the sense that they, on purpose, I think, didn't make it very obvious what was happening, where we were, what was supposed to be the concept, or if there is any there. They had this little spoken word part by Nick Mason. He said, "One of these days I'm going to cut you into little pieces." He sounded absolutely demonic when he said that, but also the way in which they used the instruments, and because they didn't sound like anything, and then you had the wind over the top of it the whole time. Really interesting track. This is clearly going to be, as I said, a very experimental track, and I think it's really cool to see this band in this period of time when they were trying things, because they obviously honed it in eventually in later iterations, where they understood that there's a certain level of experimentation that you need, and then there's another level of like accessibility that you need, and you need to mix together. But this is clearly more experimental. Barely anything said yet, 5 minutes into the album. Just wind continuously as well. Okay, straight into a pillow of winds. This band is a masterclass in transitions. They do it so effortlessly, even within songs. Beautifully serene guitars come in after that.
A cloud of eider down draws around me, softening the sound. Sleepy time when I lie with my love by my side, and she's breathing low.
Love the vibe of this thing. Interesting lyrically as well to start with. After that, like demonic verse by Mason, a cloud of eider down, which is a reference to like ducks, or like he said, A cloud of eiderdown draws around me, softening the sound. So he's either talking about like a cloud, meaning like a bunch of ducks flying in around him, or he's like he has a pillow with like duck feathers in it. That's what I'm taking from it. What a switch up, dude. After that craziness. All right, let's back it up a little bit.
Alive by my side, and she's breathing low.
Really love that cello sounding right there. You have the acoustic guitar and then that long notes there. Almost Eastern sounding.
When night comes down, you lock the door. The book falls to the floor.
Such an interesting combination. The acoustic guitar is unbelievably like soft and serene, but that has a lot of darkness in it. And it's interesting, just as it says, as darkness falls, so the pictures are changing with the words, the acoustic guitar goes down. You guys hear that? And then that darker sounding cello, I think it is, being played is coming through.
As darkness falls and waves roll by, the seasons change, the wind is warm. Now wakes the owl, now sleeps the swan. Behold a dream, the dream is gone.
Love the sound of this.
Green fields, a cold rain is falling in a golden dawn.
Doubled up the vocal. What a beautiful mood that they created. The sound switches once again. Warmer now. Sweeter. Hopeful.
And deep beneath the ground, the early morning sounds, and I go down. Sleepy time in my life, with my love by my side, and she's breathing low. And I rise like a bird in the haze, and the first rays touch the sky.
What's really interesting to me is hearing this in knowing what comes next, because next was Dark Side of the Moon. And what I always thought about that album was each track represented almost like a mood, a subject matter, something. And clearly they kind of started this idea with this album. Maybe they started it in a previous album, but these tracks have been mood tracks. A Pillow of Wind has been the perfect representation of just that. This is what this sounds like. It's a mood. It's not necessarily about anything particular, like a concept or anything like that. They take this and then they amplify it in Dark Side of the Moon, where like you think of a track like Money, they set the mood of Money through the music and the instruments that they use, right? Take Time, for example. Same thing happens with that one. Very interesting to see that. I'm glad I kind of listened to this the other way around.
the night winds die.
A beautiful track. Especially that middle part when it got a bit darker. That was really interesting. Transitions, they're so phenomenal at it. Even within a track, they transition. Turn into something else. Effortlessly. Okay, I'm curious to see if there's anything at the end of this thing, because this is the 2 tracks I'll cover. Let's see if there's anything here. Doesn't sound like it. No. Okay, interesting beginning. Interesting beginning. It has kind of lived up to the idea that I had coming into it, speaking to Matthew about it, that this is more of an experimental album. I could totally see that. And I love seeing this. I love seeing an artist or artists play, stretch themselves, try and find out new things. This is what this band was doing. This is why they end up being great, right? They're not going to make something middle of the road because it's easy and it will sell a bunch of records. They're going to try something, and it's because of this experimentation that leads to the album run, right? So you're watching them play with colors, play with instruments. Very, very interesting. Let's move on to the next track. So I'll catch you guys on the next one of these videos. See you then.